experience, either in your personal life or your business life, where you think everything is going along swimmingly? You think you're totally in control, and then suddenly, completely out of the blue, someone does something totally unexpected. Yeah, I can see a few heads nodding. I think we've all had that experience. For those who don't know, I've spent most of my career working in IT. That's information technology, for those who don't work in IT. And the great thing about working in IT is that you only have to worry about the technology. You don't have to worry about those strange things called people. You'll be sitting in your office, happily in front of your terminal. It was terminals in my day, not PCs. You'd have it in front of you. And you'd be having wonderful technical discussions with your techie colleagues. Like, how many nested do loops have you got today? Oh, 14, but I'm working on getting 18 by the end of the week. And how's your re-entry code? Is it working as it should? Oh yes. Well, I might have to change one or two variables. Techie talk. We would exchange techie jokes. For example, there are 10 different kinds of people in the world. See, some of you know what's going on. Those who understand binary, and those who don't. I can see we've got some technical people in here. Or jokes like, how many software programmers does it take to change a light bulb? None. It's a hardware problem. Don't worry about it, it's techie talk. And there we were in our wonderful, calm and exclusive technical environment. And occasionally we would get a visit from someone called a business analyst. And they would talk about things called customers. Now, we didn't really know what they were. The only thing we knew about customers is that those were the people who were in the pub next door, where we all went for lunch. And those were the people who got my colleague Jerry kicked out for being inappropriately dressed. Because, of course, as IT people, we were supposed to dress in smart casual. But as most of you know, of course, IT people don't know what smart casual is. That's what casual is, not smart casual. And there we were in this wonderful, rarefied technical environment. And I had fun for lots of years. And then, as my time went on, career progression beckoned. And I decided I would become a manager. How hard could it be? No managers are new to it. And so I signed up to the Open University for an MBA. Anyone had an MBA? Yeah. Master of Business Administration. Administration. So you become a master or an expert at creating paper, shuffling it, and giving it to other people. That's obviously where the management comes in. And about halfway through my MBA, I applied for and got my very first management job. I didn't go for a small management job in a small company. I didn't even go for a medium-sized management job in a medium-sized company. I went for a job in the UK's largest pharmaceutical company. I must have had a good day in communications when I had my interview, because I got the job. About a week before I started at this company, I was invited in to meet my new team. I got myself a nice red suit, a smart skirt suit, and a briefcase. Off I trotted to my first meeting. I was younger, and a bit thinner then, so it looked really sharp. I walked in, I opened the door, and 7 faces looked up at me. We shook hands. We exchanged details. Oh, I used to work for so-and-so, I used to work for somebody else. And after we'd done that, I stood up, and they all looked up at me expectantly. And I thought, I'm their manager. They're obviously waiting for me to tell them to do something. As I left, I saw 7 heads all huddled around the table. One head stood out, and I thought, okay, maybe that's what teams do. The next week was my first day, my very first management job. I walked up the stairs, along the corridor, still dressed in my red suit, my briefcase. I walked along the corridor, and as I walked along, I saw there was a sea of cubicles. Some had 2 sides, some had 3. They were about this high. Everybody in the office, their own cubicle. I had my own office, my first office, my first job as a manager. Wow, I was so impressed. And I walked in, I sat down in my chair at my desk in front of my terminal with my table and my chairs for visitors ready. And most importantly, my own door. The office didn't have a window, but it was my very first management job. I sat there for about 10 minutes, enjoying myself. I thought, wow. And then I thought, actually, this is quite boring. So I opened the door and I went out into the office. And as I went out, little heads popped up over the door of these little walls and these cubicles. And as I walked along the corridor, whoo, little heads popped out from the side, and more popped out over more of these cubicles. I thought, I'm looking at a vast family of meerkats. They're really cute, aren't they? They're maybe not as cute as kittens, but then there's a whole lot more of them. And in my office, there were a lot. Not just my 7, but a whole lot more. Now the thing about meerkats is that they are very, very good team players. They're very good at collaborating with each other, supporting each other, and helping to motivate each other to do what they're supposed to do. And my team was no different. They're also cliquey and not very welcoming to new people, which is, as their new manager, something of a challenge. They also have something called a meerkat monitor. Now the role of the meerkat monitor is to safeguard the team, to make sure that it's not threatened, to actually stand and watch out for any dangers that might be coming along, like a new manager. Now it took me a while, and then I realised that that head that had stood out from those 7 in that very first meeting I had was the meerkat monitor. I remember her well. She was a tall lady, oriental, and extremely good at her job. I also soon realised that if I wanted my team to actually do anything, I had to engage with the meerkat monitor. Now, have any of you worked in a unionised environment? Yeah, some nodding heads. Union rep in that group? Yeah. Your union rep is your Meerkat monitor. Their job is to ensure the team stays exactly as it is. Having realised that, I had realised that I had to work with my Meerkat monitor. And we worked together. It wasn't easy because I was a new manager and I thought I was in charge, and soon I realised that as far as my team was concerned, some of the time she was in charge. And for the next 2 years, we slowly developed a very effective working relationship. And then my company decided that it was going to merge, or rather take over, another company. And one of the things that the company wanted to do as part of this process was to get everybody to reapply for the road jobs. You can imagine what that would do to a team of meerkats. The Meerkat monitor was running around saying, no, this is a threat, we can't do this, we're not going to change, we're not going to do anything. And it took quite a lot of work to persuade my team that they weren't as threatened as they perhaps thought they were. Along with the changes came, for me, a new boss. And it wasn't long before I realised that my new boss was a wholly different animal. Shortly after he started, he invited me into his office late one afternoon. A cup of tea, a biscuit. And as I relaxed into his comfy chair, he pounced. Because my new boss was an alligator. Now, we all know what alligators are like. Once they've got you in their jaws, they take you down and down and down to the bottom of the river. They roll you over and over until you drown. And there are only two ways of dealing with an alligator. One is to fight back with everything you have. The other is to leave. I left. I've never regretted that. A few years later, I worked for an IT outsourcing company. And there I came across two other kinds of animals. Monkeys, or chimps specifically, and donkeys. I had two teams. The first team was made up of software programmers, project managers, and IT consultants. Bright, smart, clever, and very creative. My other team were a group of long-standing support people. Their job was to take things that customers had reported as not working and fix them. They'd sit tied to their PCs and fix small, complicated problems. Very quiet, very dedicated, and very, well, not terribly creative, I'm honest. Now, the donkey team didn't really get a lot of my attention. And because obviously the monkeys were more like me, outgoing, extrovert. And 2 weeks after the donkeys came to work for me, I realised that the manager of the donkey team was demonstrating some of the downsides of being a donkey. Stubbornness. For those 2 weeks, he had not spoken to me. If we passed in the corridor, he would turn away. He didn't answer my emails. He didn't answer my phone calls. And if I went to see him at his desk, he was never there. Eventually, I said to him, Mike, we need to sort this out. We need to find a way of working together. And I invited him to meet me in the office canteen at 3 o'clock that afternoon when I knew it would be quiet. We both met, and I said to him, Mike, tell me how you feel. ask anybody how they feel, unless you really want to know. He stood up, he banged on the table and said, "There's no way I'm ever going to work for you. You're extrovert, you don't think the way that I do, you don't appreciate my support people, and I just don't need a manager, I'm perfectly fine all by myself." 20 minutes later, he ran out of steam. And we sat down and we worked out a way whereby we could give him a little bit more authority, give him a little bit more autonomy than I'd originally planned, and that he reluctantly agreed that this was a possible way forward. Now, we were very lucky because at that time a new project came on board that required more people than I had as software developers. And I looked at my team and I thought, I don't have enough monkeys for this. And I decided, just a monkey won't do. We need more skills. And so we, between us, incorporated the monkeys and the donkeys together, looking at their various strengths to see how we might resource this team. We didn't have this chart then, but this is one I've drawn up afterwards. We could give the monkeys the creative, planning, big sky thinking parts of the project. But if we wanted to get some of the details sorted out, we could get the monkeys, those donkeys, those support people to really dive into the detail and actually come up with some clever ways of fixing some of the problems. The monkeys were more enthusiastic. They were extroverts, so that was no great surprise. But what the donkeys were persistent. If we had a problem, we knew that they would be able to get to the bottom of it. They were both flexible, albeit in different ways. The monkeys were flexible in coming up with new ways of doing things, new approaches, new solutions. The donkeys were very good at being flexible about being asked to do different things, provided you gave them notice. That was important. Monkeys are fine with change, as I discovered with Mike. Donkeys are not. And of course, donkeys are persistent. They are perfectionists. They were excellent at finding and making sure that when we'd written our software, it would work. And the end of the project, which I should mention for Jeremy's benefit, was actually a piece of work for BBC, which we delivered on time and on budget. How often does that happen? We raised the performance levels, the utilisation of the staff, from between 50 and 60% to over 90%. And we had a happy and motivated team. And the great thing is that the monkeys and donkeys learned to work with each other. They learned each other's behaviours, they learned each other's skills. As Munim Abraham said, our actions change our minds. Our minds can change our behaviour, and our behaviour can change the outcomes. And that was one of the things we learned. Now, I use these techniques in the work that I do as a management mentor, because I very strongly believe that a greater understanding of people's behaviours makes a huge difference to being able to manage them effectively, to motivate them well, and to make your business more successful. And I'll leave you with the last thought. If you decide that a monkey won't do, whatever you do, don't ever work with a clownfish. Thank you.
If we could break into the same groups we had before, please. Okay, we're a bit weak on this side, aren't we?
So next, quality not quantity.
It's a long time ago. It's actually fun. I'm very familiar with colour as well. You have the yellow people, the blue people, the green people. So, but it was, yeah, I thought it was a nice, thought-provoking.
The pace was.
I was wondering what on earth she was leading up to. I felt
The first half,
the first 3 quarters was an introduction.
yes.
I thought, what?
We didn't really actually know they were making jokes about the IT thing. I didn't really think that actually helped us.
If you'd been in a room full of IT people, then you would have got them on your side. But if you're in a room where half of them are not IT people, then they felt excluded.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I got the joke about the one was in and the light
But even so, I think it's a very fair point. It does, it's a great way to connect with IT
If you're in a room full of IT.
Even so, I don't think it needed to be as long as that. It was very slow.
I thought the delivery was very slow, yes. It could have done with a lot of it
I
could
don't
have
think
been
accidentally didn't have talk at Toastmasters Club, and that's the same thing last time. We cut down to that stuff. Because the behaviour stuff was really useful.
So the first thing I did say, it was a nice thought-provoking thing. It was a way to get us around, get us thinking in a different way, and whatever, which was quite nice.
But I suppose making a negative comment, I would say you don't need to have monkeys and donkeys. There's plenty of systems that will tell you how to do that, and they're far more developed.
But maybe people
Do you worry a bit that the donkey sounds pejorative? If I say, if I think donkey as someone donkey, do you know the only time I'm thinking all I'm